investment. We're going to start with an overview of storyboards in general, just very briefly, and of Storyboard That in particular. Then I'd like for us to look at ways to use Storyboard That to develop literacy skills. And when I say literacy skills, a variety of literacy skills and multiple grade levels. We'll look at reading, which I think Storyboard That has an amazing amount of support for reading skills. Writing, language, and speaking and presentation skills. And I'll stop at the end of each section for questions. That because of the way we're doing this, your questions show up in the room. Erin will see them. We may have to do a little tag teaming on the questions. So, can everyone hear me? Are we good to go? Is there anyone with an issue that needs to be resolved? Okay, not seeing anything posted. I'm going to just move on. First of all, the question, what is a storyboard? And the simple answer is a storyboard is a bunch of boxes, empty boxes. More appropriately, a storyboard is a graphic organizer that uses images and words to present a plan of action. They're often used in planning movies, TV shows, commercials, or to represent a concept of some kind to help other people understand. In the classroom, a storyboard is a really valuable tool for teachers to introduce skills and concepts, and a really powerful way for students to demonstrate their learning. Storyboards can also serve as an accommodation for students with special needs, like kids who are English language learners. They may not know the exact words that they need yet, but they can represent in picture form what they're trying to do. And then we can understand better, first of all, what words they need to learn, but then also how well they understand the skills that they need to be developing or the concepts they need to be learning. So a storyboard, a very powerful set of empty boxes. I was introduced to storyboards kind of in a roundabout way. I was preparing a lesson and I was reading a passage and I knew there was something in that passage that I just wasn't getting. And I'd read it 3 times and I was very frustrated, and the TV was on in the other room to an old movie. And coming across in the air, I heard a man's voice say sarcastically, "Do I have to draw you a picture?" And as I was looking at this passage, I thought, draw a picture. Let's give that a try. So I read the passage one more time, and I drew my little stick figures. And sure enough, by the time I finished drawing a picture, the whole thing made sense. There was an image that almost connected the dots. And I thought, I knew there was something there I wasn't getting. And drawing a picture actually made a difference. The next day, when I presented in class, I drew the same picture on the board, turned around quickly, and eyes were popping all over the classroom. They had done the reading. They hadn't made the connection. You know, it took me 4 readings to do it too. So I'm a real convert and a really strong advocate of graphic representations as support for learning. So because I'm among colleagues, I'm going to stop for a minute and just point out with this slide, Storyboard That has an exclamation point at the end of its name. I so desperately wanted to put a question mark there, but then it would kind of look sarcastic, and I didn't want to do that. So I just left the question mark out. Because I'm among other English teachers, I didn't want you to think I forgot it. It was actually a punctuation dilemma that only other English teachers will appreciate.
There's no exclamation point in our name.
Well, there is too. I saw it on your... Oh my gosh, you mean there isn't?
No.
Moving on. Moving right along. So, what is Storyboard that? Well, it is a storyboard creator that has a simple and fun interface. I've spent hours with this, and I kind of regret that I don't have an immediate use for it, because this is really just a lot of fun. It also has a detailed image library. Your students do not need to spend hours and hours finding images. They are all contained in Storyboard That. And Storyboard That helps keep the focus on the story. We know the power of narrative, and by keeping the focus where it belongs, we help keep our kids from going off into left field and getting caught on something that just distracts them utterly. They're always focused on the task at hand. Storyboard That has a wonderful management page so that you can, in the fall or at the beginning of a semester, you can add lots of students at one time. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to use. And then if there's a schedule change or if a new student moves in, you can very quickly, I've gone backwards, you can very quickly add another student. There we go. So you can do one at a time as needed or in bulk at the very beginning of a semester. Storyboard That also has a reports page with this that you can tell at a glance if you have a student who has not yet made a storyboard and maybe they've been absent or maybe something hasn't worked for them. They also have this nice word cloud feature so that you can tell almost at a glance what words the students have been using. If you're seeing a lot of the words that you expect to see, then you can have a sense that all is well. If you're seeing words that you did not expect to see, then you have an idea that there's an issue. Either the students have picked up on something that you didn't realize was there, or perhaps they've mislearned something, or they've become distracted. But by looking at your word cloud, you can tell almost at a glance where their focus is. And if it's where it needs to be, you're in good shape. If it's not where it needs to be, tomorrow we need to revisit this and see if we can get back on task and get things where they need to be. So, easy user management, that's a huge plus. An easy, fast reports page, that's also a huge plus. And I'm looking up in the corner and there is no exclamation point. I'm so glad you can't see my red face at this point.
I thought it might be a good idea to add an exclamation point after you came up with that.
Well, it messes up the rest of the punctuation. Storyboard That comes with a set of activities already made that you are welcome to use as teachers. They have a set of ready-made teacher guides, and they are organized for you. There are several for elementary school, and several for middle school, and several for high school. And they are developing a lot more. These lists are not all that's going to be. So if you have a need, you can contact them. If enough teachers are requesting the same titles, Aaron, I would not be out of place to say something would be developed, right?
Absolutely. And we're trying to come out with these as fast as we can. It just takes a lot of time because when you see these teacher guides, there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into them. But as fast as we can produce high quality work, we're producing it.
Okay, so thank you. So it's organized, and these titles are already available for you to use and for your students to use. And in addition to teacher guides that are related to specific titles or specific like U.S. history is one of them, they also have lesson plans that are linked to specific concepts or skills. For example, there's a visual vocabulary lesson plan that is already there for you to use. Elements of an epic, the hero's journey, dystopia, Shakespearean plays, irony, symbolism, conflict. These are already set, and you are welcome to use these as part of Storyboard That. And as teachers, we pride ourselves on producing our own materials. We're creative people. That's part of the attraction of the job, is coming up with our own things. But we've all had those nights where the 2-year-old has been throwing up all night long, and we go into school the next day, and we're maybe 80% prepared, but that's not 100% prepared. And it's always good to have something like this available. We've also seen it happen that you have the student who really was paying attention during the lesson and just didn't get it and needs one more explanation of a concept. You can use this material as backup material. You also have the student who has been absent, and you know you're not going to be able to explain in 5 minutes the whole explanation that that student needs. Here is some backup material. And here in Indiana, we're trying something new this year that I'm going to guess is also being tried elsewhere. We have what are called e-learning days, so that if school is called off because of bad weather, students are expected to log in and to work a lesson if they have web access at home. This would be the perfect kind of lesson to keep at hand for an e-learning day. We can add to it, we can do some introductory, we can do some follow-up, but this material is very high quality material, and it's available as part of Storyboard That. So this is really a very rich resource. Storyboard That is very easy to use, and to make sure that it's easy to use, they've provided a bunch of resources. There's a video to watch that just explains things very, very clearly. It's very, very helpful, not only for teachers, it's also helpful for students. They can watch it. There is the one-page cheat sheet that I dearly love. I downloaded it myself, but the video was so good I didn't actually need the cheat sheet. But we all have students who will do better with text. Sometimes teachers do better with text. And so the cheat sheet is available. So there's a video to help us all learn how to use this. There's a cheat sheet to help us learn how to use all this. And then there is online chat. Now, I checked this morning. This really is intended to be used by teachers. It's your prep time. You're stuck on something. You could use a little help. Somebody is there, live help. I logged in this morning. It was a little bit after 9. I said, "Hello, is anybody there?" I had a response within 1 minute. So that help is available. Now, it's not meant to be used by students, but I understand that sometimes it is. So I just want you to know that there's nothing that blocks students from using it, and it is available for teachers. So there's a lot of help. This is really very, very intuitive, and it's a lot of fun. So help is available when you're ready to start using Storyboard That. There's even a wonderful nag screen that says, "Remember to save your storyboard. You've been creating for about 15 minutes. You need to save your progress." We all can probably remember back to the times when we've lost something because there was a blip or a power surge and we had not saved recently. So Storyboard That provides a nag screen so that we don't lose our work, which kind of suggests that they understand how we're going to use it and that we get distracted from time to time. Storyboard That is very, very easy to use and very fun. So I want to pause at this point I've kind of been talking about how Storyboard that works. I want to pause and ask if there are any questions. And Aaron, I'll ask you to tell me when to move on.
No questions from chat, and great so far.
Okay, on we go then. They really understand how we operate. So let's talk about using Storyboard that to build some reading skills. This is, I think, a real strength of Storyboard that. One of the things that is available is an introduction to types of conflict. In this case, this is a storyboard that already exists. It talks about types of conflict in Of Mice and Men. Every teacher's guide that I have looked at so far has a section that talks about conflict. So if students are stuck, or if you would like to use the storyboard as an introduction to the novel or to emphasize a particular point, something like this conflict screen is going to be available. It's also can be used as a model when students present, if you want to look at it that way. Another way to use Storyboard that, talk about setting. The Common Core standards ask us to consider the impact of setting on what goes on in the novel, which of course we were doing before Common Core anyway. So here we have a storyboard based on Because of Winn-Dixie, and we have three different screens talking, or three different blocks talking about different aspects of the setting, the adult trailer park, the Open Arms Baptist Church, and the grocery store. So we can have students to create something like this, or we can use it ourselves as an introduction. Symbolism in The Great Gatsby. What are some of the symbols if we were to use this for a pre-reading activity? What are some of the symbols that students want to watch for? What might those symbols represent? We could also ask students who are reading a different book, say they're reading The Hunger Games, what are the symbols that are present there, and what do the symbols represent? That would be something that would ask them to do the analyzing. I went to Tom Sawyer and the famous Chapter 2, Whitewashing the Fence, for a storyboard on reading for main idea and details. Now, one of the things we can do down here at the bottom is we can add captions. So there's a little summary here. Tom had to whitewash the fence on Saturday. He was sad until he had an inspiration. And I want to point out that here he kind of looks sad. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Well, what's the next thing that happens in Chapter 2? Ben Rogers comes along. Tom cons him successfully into whitewashing. By the end of the day, the fence had 3 coats of whitewash. And then at the very end, Twain speaks up and says, work consists of whatever a body is obliged to do, and play consists of whatever a body is not obliged to do. Well, here's your main idea right here. And these are all the details that help lead up to this main idea. And this is something that we could ask students to do as part of a close reading activity. Read a passage and then show me what are the main ideas, or what is the main idea, what are the details that lead up to that main idea. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, again, is Tom's sad face. Part of the amazing flexibility of Storyboard that is that you can change different elements of the characters. Tom's hair color, Tom's eye color, and Tom's skin color were all options that I chose. And his pose, his posture, is another option that I chose. If you look over here, same hair and eyes, but his expression has changed. His arms have moved. That is something that Storyboard That makes available as an option. These captions at the bottom allow the students to explain what it is that they're trying to demonstrate in the picture, just in case the picture doesn't quite turn out the way they had hoped that it would. Also, I wanted to point out that I took a little bit of liberty here in having the finished picket fence straddle two of the boxes. That only will work as long as I'm planning to print out on paper this presentation. If I'm planning to present it a different way, Storyboard That is going to cut the picket fence right in half there. So this is something you kind of figure out as you play with it a little bit. Let's see. So if we were to look at, see if I can find, okay, we have this boy right here. Oops. And then this is the same boy, the same character from Storyboard That, but I added a hat and I changed his hair and eye color so it would look like a different boy. There were only so many boys who looked like they came out of the early the 1850s, so I went with that. Let me see if I can get back into. Okay, so if I wanted to share this with other people, there are 6 options. I could go ahead and print it out. I can convert this to a slideshow, and then the students can present from the whiteboard at the front of the room. It is possible to download the images. They come out in a PNG format, and if students wanted to use the same images in a different project, for example, that would be something that they could do. You can download it as a PowerPoint presentation. You can make a cute little greeting card. And I think this last option may be my favorite of all. You can embed it in a class wiki or a class PowerPoint. So that what happens is, while the work is still in draft mode, maybe it still has some misspelled words, maybe the student hasn't quite finished it yet, while it's still in draft mode, it's protected by a password, and only the teacher, maybe the other class members, can see it. But once it's finished and it's ready to be shared, it can be embedded on a class wiki or a class blog, and then the student can share it with friends. They can go home and say, "Mom and Dad, look what I did." They can send a link to their aunt and say, "Look what we're doing at school." You can send a link to the principal and say, "Look what our students are doing." With any luck, the principal will notify the school board, and you will be rewarded for your brilliant classroom activities. I figure if you're going to dream big.
Just one quick thing about the embed. You only get that option if you change the privacy setting to allow it to be on the internet as a whole. Otherwise, the storyboard's protected, can only be within your classroom. And so it's a teacher setting to disable the security. This is a pro tip.
Oh, so that code was not something that could be copied and pasted?
It can, but the fact that you see the button means you changed your privacy from private to public.
Okay.
And so once you make it public, then it can be embedded.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. Thanks. So some other possibilities using Storyboard That to develop reading skills. Have students identify plot structure. Have them identify key details, as I kind of suggested with Tom Sawyer there. Have them identify irony or figurative language or the symbols, or looking at the importance of point of view. One of my favorite children's books is The True Story of the Three Little Pigs by John Cheska, where we hear the wolf's point of view. I always wondered, what if the story of Goldilocks were told by the littlest bear or something? Um, you could have students really look at point of view and see what a difference that makes to the story itself. That works on almost any age level. Have students illustrate key quotations. If they select the key quotations or if the teacher selects the key quotations, that would be an option. Identifying change over the course of a narrative. If a character starts out with one attitude and they end up with a completely different attitude, what were the events that happened in the middle that caused that change? This would be something that Storyboard that would lend itself well to. And identifying archetypal elements. Who is the mentor in this piece? Who is the trickster in this piece, like Tom Sawyer? So those are all possibilities that are dealing with reading. I'm going to pause here. Are there some questions that I could respond to?
I don't see any questions in the chat box.
Then on we go. Writing skills, especially the pre-writing activities. There are a lot of different things you can do with Storyboard that. And what I've done is I've started out with some very, very simple things and tried to move towards things that are a little more complex. For example, homophones. Then versus than, which only works if you overpronounce it or if you live in certain parts of the country. And the eternal there versus there versus there, a controversy that lives forever on the internet. We all know that students will learn best when they are engaged with a concept. If they have to come up with a visual representation of there, and there, or your and your, if they have to come up with their own way to differentiate these homophones, they are much, much, much more likely to learn them. And they can maybe share with one another, share some good ideas. And you can print them out and hang them up around the room, or you can share them in any one of a number of ways. Homophones, one way of developing some writing skill. This is an existing lesson, teaching rhetoric with ethos, logos, and pathos. That's a way of thinking that students generally figure out very quickly once it is explained to them, but sometimes it takes 2 or 3 explanations. And this is an example of something that's already in existence on Storyboard that, so you could use it either as an introduction or you could use it as a reinforcement as you work with students on persuasive writing and on research and the importance of logos. Another existing lesson plan that deals with writing is a pre-writing activity for analyzing literature, where you ask students to look for tone, look for word choice, look for imagery, look for style, and look for theme. And they can put all of those elements into a storyboard. They've done a great deal of analysis, and they can move those individual cells of the storyboard around and create a kind of a visual outline, as it were, and go from that then to some kind of an outline or a writing plan, and then they're ready to start drafting. So Storyboard that will lend itself well to pre-writing activities. Stopping by woods. I wanted students to look at the impact of setting, and so I asked them, now the poem tells us it's the darkest evening of the year, so we know it's December 21st, 22nd. What would be a difference? How would this poem be different if it were set in June, in the brightest evening of the year? And so I ask students to do that analysis, and they can come up with specific details, and they come to see very quickly that the entire tone of the poem changes. So we needed a couple of different pictures to show representations. This is, again, the same farmer. Over here in the winter, he has a hat and a jacket that he obviously will not need in June. But I want to point out another nice flexibility or a nice feature that Storyboard that has. This picture and this picture are not part of the thousands of images that are available in Storyboard that. Storyboard that makes it possible to upload additional images if you just can't find the one you want. This is an example of all the, as you can see, I'm looking for their outdoor scenes here. And as you can see, it's an extensive collection. And if I were able to move this slider over, there would be even more than the ones you can see here. But I just didn't find a horse with sleigh bells and another horse without sleigh bells. So even though I'm looking at the outdoor scenes, I'm not quite finding what I want. But there's another option, and it says that you can upload your own pictures. So that's what I decided to do. Now, as soon as you click on this button, there's a very, very clear statement. Do not upload pictures of children under 13, adult or offensive images, or copyrighted material. If you haven't already talked to your students about appropriateness of images, this is a perfect time to begin that conversation. Chances are good you've already had it, but just in case. And just in case you miss it, when you go over here to click on this Upload Images button, there's a reminder one more time. You may not upload photos of children under 13, copyrighted material, adult or offensive images. Now, it's very nice that we also get a list of the images that are supported. As you can see, that'll pretty much meet almost everything that you could possibly want to upload here. But you can add then your own images. If the students have taken pictures from a vacation time or over the weekend, or maybe they took a selfie that they want to use, as long as the students are over 13, they can use those. I'm going to pause here. Are there questions on this section before I go on to talk about language?
Guys, any questions from chat? Nope, no questions.
Okay. Moving on then to look at language. Capitalization should be a fairly simple thing, but for some students, they understand the concept sort of philosophically speaking, but they can't be bothered to actually implement capitalization. I had a lot of success by asking students very simply, would you rather have a Mustang or a capital M Mustang? They understood immediately that the capital letter really made a difference. Would you rather have an apple or an apple? They understood immediately that capitalization made a difference. If you need help with your car, do you want a Jack or do you want a guy named Jack?
Storyboard is great.
So, I only had to go through this once, and I had converts almost immediately. But you just have to explain to kids. It really makes a difference. And it turns out, your trivia for today, these words that change their meaning with a capital letter, they're called capitonyms, like a capital, delete the L, and put NYMS, capitonyms. So for China, the country, versus China, the dishes, is another one. Just your trivia for tonight. Anyhow, this is something that you could ask students to look at and to demonstrate their understanding of the importance of capitalization with something as simple as this. An existing lesson, teaching denotation versus connotation with storyboards. Down here we have the gal saying, the weasel I went on a blind date with last night had some nerve, blah, blah, blah. And the next person says, wait, a weasel talked to you? Okay, let's talk about the difference between a literal weasel and a figurative weasel. And we could even go into the whole literally conversation, but we're not going to. Anyhow, denotation versus connotation. Make the meaning clear in a storyboard. Show me what you understand about the difference between denotation and connotation. It allows for some student creativity, and still we demonstrate our learning. This is an interesting sentence structure activity. If you look, we've got titles up at the top here. Only I washed my socks. I only washed my socks. I washed only my socks. I washed my only socks. I washed my socks only. For students who don't understand why we have to bother with sentence structure, what difference does it make what order I put the words in? A sentence like this forces them to understand that the meaning changes as you move the modifier. And then there's room underneath for the students to explain the difference in each sentence. It should be fairly simple, and yet this simple change completely changes the meaning of the sentence. So you can work with sentence structure with students, and this can be converted to a template. Any storyboard can be converted to a template, and then the entire class can work with it. Can you say bell ringers? If you were to spend, say, the first year creating a set of bell ringers on Storyboard that, it would be an investment of your time. But then the second year, it would be done. You would have it. Students would be able to use it, and you would just have to make it available to them. They can work with a partner. The students who prefer to work solo can work solo. And you have then, with a template, you have another option for using Storyboard that.
These storyboards are amazing.
Pardon?
I'm just really, really enjoying seeing how you look at this product, and the ways that you're working with the product is just really, really innovative and different than the way we think of it. It's just absolutely fascinating being on the other side of this webinar.
Oh, well, thank you. Does that mean I'm forgiven for my little exclamation point faux pas earlier?
No forgiveness needed. I thought it was an interesting idea. But this is just fascinating, seeing just such different uses for, we love it, we see it all the time, but these are just really, really great concrete examples. I absolutely am just loving listening to this.
Well, thank you. Vocabulary using the Freyer model. Now, most of us who have used the Freyer model before will remember it as 4 boxes with the word in the center of the paper and then 4 boxes surrounding the word. And in one case, we're going to put the definition in our own words. In another box, we put facts and characteristics about the concept. Then we have to list 3 examples. And then in the 4th box to teach vocabulary, this is what is it not. So when we're talking about the Freyer model, this is just a different way. It divorces the approach from a piece of paper, and it gives the students more options with the artwork. And one of the things I really would like to comment on, if you'll, this is kind of off the subject, but really not. If you'll notice the font here, Storyboard that makes available 10 different fonts for students to use. And I really appreciate that because I'm one of the people who has to check every single font and to see what it looks like. But by limiting me to only 10, we guarantee that I don't waste too much time. So that's really a blessing. But what I want to point out is this particular font is designed for students who have learning disabilities and dyslexia issues. The letters are supposed to make it easier for people who have dyslexia to recognize what the letter is. And I just think it is so cool that you included that as one of the fonts, so that it really does support accommodating people who have special needs. I really, really like that.
Thank you. We learned about that at an ed camp from a 15-year-old student with dyslexia. He said this font changed his life, and so we reached out to the author of the font and we asked for permission. So this was direct feedback from a user. And we looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fonts to come up with those 10. So glad you appreciate that.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is very brief, is to talk about developing the literacy skill of speaking and presentation. And I just want to use one example. We'll go back to this vocabulary using the Freyer model. If you have available for your students, say a whiteboard or maybe an Apple TV or something, if you go down here to Slide Show and click on it, I sure hope this works the way it's supposed to. Yes. All right. I've left my PowerPoint presentation and I'm now on the website. I'm going to click on where it says Slideshow and I want you to see what happens. That's how easy it is for the student to share their work with the class. Here's the definition in my own words. Click on the next slide. Here are the facts and characteristics about the word debris. Here's the first example, and I've put a sample sentence down here. After the traffic accident, debris littered the highway. The second example, this debris was left after an earthquake. The third example, marine debris, which kind of breaks the rule because the definition debris is usually the result of an act of violent destruction, but marine debris is just all the garbage, sometimes from the earthquakes and sometimes just garbage that falls off cruise liners and other ships. Debris is not regular garbage or trash, and it is not the recycling. And then we're ready to close the slideshow. The student has been able to demonstrate their knowledge. The student has been able to share their learning with other students. Who knows, maybe there was a student who was trying to learn debris and it just didn't make sense, but now they've seen another student's point of view. It makes more sense to them. We never know quite how these things work, but they always seem to work out in the end. So we can close the slideshow here. And we're ready for the next student who's ready to present. So let's go back here. So again, what questions can I answer? Oops, slideshow. There we go. What questions can I answer? Are there questions that I can address here?
So far, no questions from the audience there. They're very quiet this evening.
All right. Well, that concludes my presentation. I really, really want you to know how much I appreciate what you're doing. It has never been easy to be a teacher, but I think it's harder now than it has ever been. Thank you so much for fighting the good fight and for sticking up for our students. Carry on. And I'm sure that Erin would be happy to answer any questions that you might have about Storyboard That, and you will find links to a lot of the resources at Storyboard That on Web English Teacher. I said a lot and not all because they're generating them faster than I can keep up, so I will do the best I can, but between Storyboard That and Web English Teacher, we'll try to keep you well supported as you work with our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was absolutely amazing. Uh, of all the examples, what is your favorite that you'd use in a class? Oh, there's a question from Maureen. Is there any interest in adding graphics or topics in math or science? I guess is that a question? It's probably a question for me. And the answer to that question, Maureen, is absolutely. I don't know if you met him at I was at the conference with Maureen on Thursday, so I actually just saw her in person. And
great.
We may have found a science teacher that can help us begin to add science activities. But we've begun thinking about it, and let me take over the screen 1 second with an example. Give me one second just to pull it up, though. Thank you, Asunka. All right, so let me I'm gonna take over the desktop. Oh, you have to stop sharing your desktop for me to share mine.
Okay, how do I turn it off?
Or I don't know. Or I
see.
You know what? Oh, you turned it off. Okay, let me share mine. We'll share that. Did I share the correct monitor? What screen are you seeing? Are you seeing Macbeth? Or are you seeing
starting screen sharing.
Oh. Let's see.
Okay.
So you're not seeing either of my monitors right now?
Okay, now I can see the girl who's doing the presentation, and in the background, Macbeth says King. Now we see the solar system.
So, in answer to the question about science, similar to where a lot of Carla's examples were, beginning to create a graphical organizer about this is Mercury, this is Venus, this is Earth, all the facts about them. And all these photos came from Photos for Class, which is our newest website, which I'll just quickly show off. It's if you're looking for safe, Creative Commons, copyright-free images, I can go here and search for pictures of the Earth and begin to find gorgeous images that are free and safe to use in class. And Maureen, it looks like you said yes, this is what you're looking for. I do this at third grade and other topics in earth science at fourth. Yeah, so this was a big realization of this is something we can do. And over the summer, we hope to begin to create some content around ideas like this. The ability to add the titles and description and the captions is brand new. So now that we have this technology, we're really going to utilize it a lot. It's new as of this weekend.
And the captions and the titles are a great example of how Storyboard that is working to constantly improve the product.
Yeah, thank you. We really are. One of the things we do is we have a number of teachers on staff, and we ask them to create lesson plans and teacher guides. And as they continue to push the product for the features that they need, it really helps us understand where the product needs to go and where we need to develop better qualities. So that's really how we push the products, listening to our community, and even further when we ask teachers to push the product as hard as we can. Cool. Any more questions? Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording. And I would like to thank everyone for being here. And Carla, this is absolutely amazing. Thank you.
My